A lot of people associate the Druid class and confine them to Wales or Ireland. Yet various ancient sources cite the origins of the Druids as being in the north, sometimes said to be on remote northern islands. Several characters in Irish mythology travel north into present-day Scotland in order to train in druidic arts, and recall also that the semi-mythical Myrddin, or Merlin, was thought to have gained his power while residing in the Caledonian forest, and his final resting place is said to be along the River Tweed in southern Scotland. Clearly, I think in these tales, there is at least the impression in the minds of the people at the time that the north of Britain held some great spiritual power. And is it really just a coincidence that in Pictland, following the conquest of southern Britain and the suppression of the Druids, that you have the appearance of a very precise set of symbols carved on stones? Now, of course, I'm talking about the famous Pictish stones and their iconic symbols that remained relatively unchanged for hundreds of years and appeared throughout all Pictland and even further south in places like Trustees Hill in present-day Galloway, which we generally do not associate with the Picts, but with Britons of Irhen Oglith, the Old North. So Trustees Hill is now thought to have been the power center of the kingdom of Reged, which features in Old Welsh poetry. This perhaps shows that these symbols were not the work of a political force, but a cultural or spiritual one. As if to directly answer this, there's actually a stone that was found in Rhynie. It's a Pictish hill fort near Aberdeen, and it depicts a druidic-like figure with a ceremonial axe. I have spent quite a bit of time over the last few months studying Class 1 and Class 2 type Pictish symbols. And so in the early Christian era work, you can see influence from Northumbria and Ireland, and of course from Christian symbology and mythology and on the cross slabs. But what is remarkable is that even during this Christianized period, the older symbols remain for quite a long period of time in an unchanged state. And these symbols are not mixed with the Christian iconography. They're kept separate from it on opposite sides of the stone. So you have a Christian side, and then, what I would call a druidic side. Perhaps this reflects a continuation during this state of pre-Christian beliefs by large and potentially powerful sections of Pictish society. It is possible that a strong druidic class existed within Pictland, and that they were responsible for the stones. As they had existed everywhere else in the British Isles, it would be very odd if they were not present in Caledonia and later Pictland. It's also probable that numbers of them fled north after military defeats in the south, taking refuge in places like the Caledonian forest of Myrddin. The dramatic changes that they were witnessing perhaps inspired them to finally begin to put things down in a permanent way, although keeping well within their secretive traditions. They were so successful in this that teams of scholars are still today trying to discover the meaning of the symbols. Are they a writing system, solar observations, symbols of gods? Perhaps they're a bit of all of these things, and it's likely that we'll never know. Because of how secretive the Druids were, they never would have created a way to translate or break their code, if indeed it is a code. So what seems to me to be indisputable is that a class of people in Pictland was certainly responsible for these symbols, and had a very clear understanding of what they were, for they appear uniformly across the entire land and across time. This could not have been the result of independent craftspeople simply inspired by tradition, because they're far too exact, repetitive, and widespread for that. It doesn't mean that it was certainly the Druids behind it, but some social order it must have been that was able to keep continuity for about 500 years. And to put that into perspective, that's more than twice as long as the USA has existed as an independent country. So perhaps before being carved in stone, they had been carved into wood for many generations, and that's how the symbols had developed into the exact forms that we see them in stone. So carving spells into wood was supposed to have been a technique of the Druids. Could these be stone representations of Druidic spells? Perhaps incantations of protection or power? Seeing the destruction of their order, perhaps they became concerned with putting things down in a more permanent way, so that they might continue on, even if the Druids themselves should be destroyed.